Toronto food is so bland, it makes you feel like your taste buds have died and you'll never taste
I
anything
will
again.
so disagree with you
Um,
on that.
the actresses for Miss Marvel and Netflix's show Never Have I Ever, they're both Canadians. Simu Liu is from Toronto. He was a Marvel superhero in Shang-Chi. So there are many examples of Canadian immigrant background kids who found success in the US, and this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yes, but I will argue that the way that they depict immigrants in these TV series and movies is not done correctly. Like I think Miss Marvel is very cringeworthy in the accents that they put in all the actors, and the way that they depict some things is
Yeah.
very cringy. To a degree that sometimes as I would I watched it because it's Marvel, not because it was an immigrant.
It's also partially because it's the West trying to imitate a culture, and when you're from that culture, you see the imitation aspect and you think it's cringeworthy. Whereas if it was, there are genuine, authentic stories of immigration that come up and that are told, but those stories aren't Marvel stories. They're about how you had to do a carpenter job even though you were a banker at a high position in Pakistan, and those aren't the stories that are necessarily you know
Those are
that
not exactly superhero mass audience billion
Yeah,
dollar
or Uber
yeah, that's
drivers.
statement.
exactly it.
Hello,
And
everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cambrian Explosion, where we have explosive insights about immigrants around the world. So I'm going to start off with a very controversial topic this time around. We'll be talking about reverse immigration in Canada, and I just wanted to start off with because many people have different interpretations of this right now, since we've had a growing number of immigrants coming to Canada and a lot of challenges we've been seeing with that.
Yeah, look, I've seen stories of people who came to Canada and then they got sticker shock, right? They uh, got shocked by the cost of living here, the cost of housing, the difficulty of making it as a new immigrant. They didn't expect there to be so much obstacles and barriers, like they don't want to hire you for the job that you have experience in. They say you don't have Canadian education, you don't have Canadian experience. You have to start at low-level jobs. Many different things. I have a friend who immigrated here recently after he got married, and he used to live in Australia, and he was shocked at how much lower the salaries are in his field than he would get in Australia, and how
And
much
did
higher
that
the
want
cost of
to
living is.
Yeah, and did that make him want to move back? Because, it's reverse immigration. That's the problem.
He definitely is thinking seriously about it, but there are other factors for him. So he's, I think, settled down right now for the at least for the time being. But in the future, who knows?
Yeah, and
Nothing is
just
set
to
in
give
stone.
people a bit of context, historically, Canada has let in about 300,000 immigrants a year. But now in the last, 3 years, it's been over 400,000. If you look at that and you see the increase in the number of immigrants coming to Canada, the question I have is, do we have the infrastructure for it?
I was going to say that the one thing that I've noticed, so first of all, just defining reverse immigration, it's not just about moving back to your home country. It can be moving to just a country with better economic opportunities, often because, um, as you guys have discussed, incoming immigrants can drive up cost of living, housing, etc., etc. So if you've settled in Canada, a lot of people come here for the passport or for some other, degree or some educational opportunities. But if you're settled over here, and with post-COVID remote work particularly, there has been inflationary pressure, the cost of living pressures. There has been a growing trend of just thinking about, well, if I can be earning the same XYZ amount of dollars working remote, why do I need to be sitting in a place that is so expensive? Why don't I just go to a place which is cheaper, just in terms of cost of living?
And here I will actually note something very interesting. There's a phenomenon with Canadians know that economic opportunities are much more available. They have much better chances of getting earning a higher income if they migrate and work in the United States. So there's this real phenomenon of brain drain where Canadians who study here, they get their education here at a university, and then go and migrate to the U.S. And go and get a job and work in the U.S. and work and live in the U.S. because just the prospect of probably more than doubling your salary and earning in US dollars versus staying in Canada and earning the Canadian levels of salary.
And then death by
There's
taxes.
and paying like 40-50% of your salary in tax. It just doesn't make sense. So there's a real phenomenon already of Canadians who do this. And
Yeah.
this is just like immigrants who come in and experience the structural issues in Canada. That's just a drop in the bucket.
It's come to a point, even immigrants are telling immigrants, don't come to Canada, or why there's so many immigrants here. I'll just give a fun example. Everybody knows this. If you are wanting to go to Brampton in Ontario, people will say don't live in Brampton because there's a lot of immigrants there, and your car insurance will be higher because there are more accidents and stuff like that. And there's a whole bunch of memes out there with samosas on the street and stuff I'll put on the screen. And so the challenge is that if immigrants are telling you do not go here or there because there are too many immigrants there, you're going to have a challenge with your buying a house or with driving there. And it's not a white person that's saying this, it's a brown immigrant, right? So
Yeah, look,
where are
I'm
we
reading
at
this
then?
article, and to support your point, Mahesh, I just found this article in CBC that's titled "Moving to Canada was harder than I thought. I'm not sure I'd do it again." And the subheading is, "My husband was a banker in Pakistan. In Canada, the only job he could get initially was installing carpets."
Yeah. Well, this is a tough story for a lot of people.
Mhm,
Um, I know we talked about the challenges. I think there's the cost of living, but there's also the explore opportunity to explore different cultures. Because once you have,
mhm,
as a Pakistani, if I wanted with my Pakistani passport, if I wanted to go and live in, let's say, South America, somewhere in Brazil, and cost of living is cheaper, etc., as compared to Canada,
mhm,
I can't just get up and go. But with the
mhm,
Canadian passport, it's so much easier to just get up, go, and just live in a different country for like
mhm,
1, 2, 3 years and experience the culture. There's a lot of people who do that and go to, for example, South Korea and teach English over there from
mhm.
Canada, and it's just a different experience because part of living life is exploring the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'll add a funny perspective to this as well, which is that there are actually, what I was circling back to what I was saying earlier about Canadians who go to the US for economic opportunity. And it's notable that the children of immigrants do this as well. So, people of color are Canadians who were born or raised in Canada. And there are many famous examples of this. There are, the actresses for Miss Marvel and Netflix's show Never Have I Ever. They're both Canadians. Simu Liu is from Toronto. He was a Marvel superhero in Shang-Chi. So there are many examples of Canadian immigrant background kids who found success in the US, and this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yes, but I will argue that the way that they depict immigrants in these TV series and movies is not done correctly. Like I think Miss
Mhm,
Marvel is very cringeworthy in the accents that they put in all the actors, and the way that they
mhm,
depict some things is
Yeah.
very
mhm,
very cringy. To a
mhm,
degree that sometimes as
Y-
I watched it because it's Marvel, not because it was an immigrant.
it's also partially because it's the West trying to imitate a culture, and when you're from that culture, you see the
mhm,
imitation aspect and you think it's cringeworthy. Whereas
mhm,
if it was, there are genuine, authentic stories of immigration that come up and that are told, but those stories aren't Marvel stories. They're about how you had to do a carpenter job even though you were a
mhm,
banker at a high position in Pakistan, and
mhm,
and those aren't the stories that are necessarily you know
Those are
That
not exactly superhero mass audience billion
Yeah,
dollar
or Uber
Yeah, that's
driving.
theater.
exactly it. And
Yeah.
but those are the true stories that you would go like, ah, I've seen that.
Mhm.
I see that because I resonate with that because I've seen either myself or I've
Mhm.
seen one of my friends go through some similar experience.
Nabil, I think I told you about this movie. I don't know if you ever got a chance to watch it. Man Push Card, but directed by Raman Barhani.
No, I didn't get to watch it, but
Okay.
I do remember you mentioning it. Yes.
Yeah. That's that depicts a really like very personal story about a Pakistani immigrant who lives in New York and how his life circumstances changed since he came to this country. He went to the
Yeah.
U.S. And so on and so forth. Very interesting movie. I think
Yeah.
it's from like early 2000s.
Was he there's another movie where a doctor
Yeah.
becomes like an Uber driver and
Dr. Cabby. Dr. Cabby. Yeah.
yes, there's a lot of people, if you notice,
Yeah.
that
That's
if you
based on
take
a
an
true story.
Uber, well, I mean, I'm just talking generally. If you both have ever taken
Yeah.
an Uber, it's very rare that I find like a white person or
Yeah. It
driving
is rare.
Uber.
It is rare.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people driving Ubers are immigrants who are driving cars owned by other people. So, they're probably like they're in some kind of like some kind of an arrangement where the owner of the car lets it out or rents it out to the driver, and the driver has to pay them back somehow.
yeah,
That's my theory.
yeah.
Well, we should at some point have people from Brampton come in and tell us about this specifically because I've met some people from Brampton who are into running schools for driving, particularly truck driving, but also this kind of Uber driving for immigrants who come in. So it's something worth exploring, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I just wanted to touch upon in this episode was if you guys haven't heard of the Ridgeway Plaza, it's a small plaza near me in Mississauga, where when it opened, we were super excited. There's tons of very culturally authentic food there. I think it's over 50 to 100 restaurants there now. When they first opened that plaza, there were no stop signs, so there were tons of accidents, especially with again, going back to immigrants and bad driving. So you had tons of those. But after about a year, because it got so popular and people were coming, in fact, there are people who I've seen the license plate from the US that drive down just to go to that plaza. After a year, now if you go there, police regularly patrol that area because there's so many immigrants that come there and I will say create a mess. No one is cleaning it up outside restaurants. And it's come to a point where the immigrants have sort of, you can say descend on that plaza and have created a problem for the residents in that area. Anytime there's a cricket match or 15th August, like Independence Day or something, there is a huge problem to a degree where everyone living there is worried about their property values. And, even despite all that, if that wasn't an issue, there are people partying there till like 2 a.m., drinking chai and celebrating something, whether it's a Saturday or a Tuesday, right? So
Hey, the thing is, the food's good there.
no, actually, yeah, excuse me, have you actually been there?
I mean,
uh,
if
no,
you can get good ethnic food in somewhere in the GTA, I always feel like it's a
So,
miracle
so
because
the funny thing is, there's very few good places there. Out of the 100 restaurants that are
yeah,
there now,
That's true.
yeah.
They're limited, but there are good places that I know because
Yeah.
I have been there to a few that are pretty decent. Uh,
Toronto food is so bland, it makes you feel like your taste buds have died and you'll never taste
I
anything
will
again.
so disagree with you on that.
Uh,
So
uh,
here's the thing. I have somebody I want to invite on the podcast who
mhm,
actually is a food critic who's from
mhm,
Singapore and
mhm.
travels all over the world, and
No,
he
wow.
does food tours in Toronto. I have explored a bunch of Toronto, and if you ever want a restaurant list from me, let
Okay.
me know. But
Okay.
Toronto has an amazing food scene that I
yeah.
will
Well,
defend.
I will say having the immigration boom in Canada has created the positive effect is amazing food and culture people have
Mhm,
brought here. However, I
mhm,
will say again, going back to our earlier points, if you don't have the infrastructure for it and Now people cannot go to that area and have fun like they were intended to have fun because people are causing chaos in that area at the end of the day.
mm,
Then you're not creating a very livable neighborhood, an area for people. So
mhm.
it's one of those things where there are positives and negatives. And then it goes back to people are going to start saying it's not Brampton now, it's Ridgeway Plaza. Don't go to Ridgeway Plaza. There's too many immigrants
Mm.
there. You might dent your car and cause an accident, because that did happen. There was a car that completely got wrecked
I,
there as well.
my personal thoughts on this is that that particular thing of saying something like this area is this way is a bit of stereotyping as well. I feel
Mm.
it's a way of, accidents happen downtown as well. You don't
Yeah,
say it because it's not a concentration of a particular group.
yeah,
Because it
yeah, yeah.
happened in a place where there's a concentration of a particular group, you just say, okay, it's because they are there. Well, accidents happen in all types of different places, and you don't blame they.
I agree with you, but the
Mhm,
challenge
mhm,
is that and again, it's not a white person who's saying this, it's immigrants telling you,
mhm.
don't go here, right? No, normally, I'm not somebody to say don't immigrate to Canada, or,
We
hey,
have to be careful. We immigrants, I think we know immigrants can often be very quite racist as well, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
many people bring their prejudices back from where they came from, and you have to have new generations which slowly over time they let go of those prejudices, right?
Yes, but bringing it back to Nabil's conversation about the Canadian passport, I'm
Mhm,
just curious to see long term with all these issues in Canada, not just this specific thing, but
mhm,
what will the value of the Canadian passport be? Because of
mhm.
all the issues that an election in the United States as well that we've talked about in previous podcasts.
I,
Uh, you
I-
know,
Canada is number three or number four, and it's in the top 10 of most places you can travel to easily. So best
Mhm,
passports to have.
mhm,
Um, in terms of like just being able to travel different countries, being able to live, you get like on landing visas, or you get 6 months no visa stays, no
mhm.
problem with the Canadian passport. Yeah, sure, there are countries like North Korea where you will still need a visa, and you will but if you're going to South America, or if you're going to the US, or
I think that's
it's
going to change. I think that's going to change mostly because, and I linked this article as well. For as an example, Toronto is actually number 8 in homelessness, for example,
yeah.
now in the world. So I would say that if we do not fix some of the infrastructure and things to prepare Canada for immigrants, not saying that you shouldn't immigrate here, or
No,
that
that
they should close the border, but
but here's the thing. How is that going to impact people who are going away outside of Canada? Like, why would the Canadian passport become less powerful because there's homelessness in Toronto?
No,
Uh,
no, I'm just saying that if you compound that with homelessness, high interest rates, unemployment, no infrastructure for
yeah.
immigrants, and then all the other things that I could possibly bring up, people will say, okay, I have this passport, but is it really going to allow me to live somewhere that's cheaper? And then if the value goes down, again, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but in my head, other than
So,
the benefit of,
here's the thing. The flow is still going to be, and to me, this is how it is right now, is that there's a certain number of immigrants that come to Canada, which is the the traditional figure is the 300K, 400K, not the figures we've had since and post COVID. Like the 500K, 800K kind of figures. But the traditional, a certain number of people come to Canada, and before 9/11, more people used to go to the US than they used to come to Canada. After 9/11, that changed. They're still going to come over here because they want the passport, and there are still better economic opportunities than back home until they get a Canadian degree and Canadian job experience. And then when they go back, they are in a position to get like, oh, I have Canadian or American experience. So they're working at very good positions back home, really good companies, or they have remote work. They found clients in the US or Canada, and they're servicing those clients, but living in the in a country where either they can earn way more or the cost of living is way cheaper, you know. And so I still think that people are going to keep coming over here for the passport because they can't do that without the passport once, or
Actually,
the education.
yeah, they're gonna keep coming here because let's be realistic. Like, let's leave aside all of the problems for a second, right? Immigrating to Canada still offers vastly more opportunities to the majority of people from other countries than they would have in their home countries, right?
That's exactly
Uh,
it.
Otherwise, why would there be so huge levels of people coming in? Why would they want to come
Yeah.
in the first place? So,
Yeah,
uh,
fair enough. But I think these are all very interesting insights that we can
mhm.
continue. Uh,
Just when it was starting to get really deep.
I was just getting started.
yeah. I can see that. I could go on forever on this
I
topic.
could do this all day.
I
I
could
could
do
do
this.
this all day,
Yeah.
but I think that's where we will leave the listeners hanging to figure out how did these guys actually resolve this discussion that they were having. And we will also ask the listeners to put comments in there to tell us what their opinions are on this particular topic. Like, how does reverse immigration happen? What's happening? Is immigration going to continue happening in Canada the way that it is happening? Is it good? Is it bad? Tell us more. Tell us
Yeah.
what you think.
Yeah. Tell us what's cooking. What's cooking up here.
Yes, I was going to ask you. You're trying to compete with my hat. Uh,
Yeah. What's cooking, Mavish?
Yeah, I don't know what's cooking. I have some very explosive and controversial comments this episode, so hopefully people don't blame me for that in the comments. But anyways, if you liked what you listened to and you want me to still be the devil's advocate and say very controversial things, let us know, and we will keep at it and keep going. And until next time, I hope you have an awesome day and stay tuned for better listens.
Take care. Bye bye.
Take care, everyone.